Good morning, boys and girls. I'm so glad that you're here again today. So we're just going to start off with our offertory blessing, and you can either hold a heart or your money in your hand, and together we're going to say, Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. Love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. It's just like a magic penny, hold on tight and you won't have any. Lend it, spend it, and you'll have so many, they'll roll all over the floor. Love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more and more and more and more and more. All right, next we're going to do our gratitude shakers. Today I am grateful for the beautiful weather and to be able to spend so much time outside. Thomas, what are you grateful for?
Being able to sleep in.
All right. And friends at home, what are you grateful for? All right. So, today we're going to start with our mindfulness, and this mindfulness card is from Mindful Kids, and this one is called Words to Yourself, Boost Your Self-Confidence. So we're going to start by sitting mindfully with our spine straight. Are you nervous? Ever nervous about something? Maybe about trying something new? Because you think you can't do it? Well, instead of worrying, close your eyes and imagine someone you love encouraging you. Now talk to yourself in the same way. Use positive words. Tell yourself it's okay to try many times when doing something new. Think about the kind of words you would say to a friend who needs your help. Use those same words to yourself. Open your eyes and smile at yourself. You are fine just the way you are. You help yourself when you replace any unkind words in your mind with kind words. So it's important that we use kind words not only with other people, but also with ourselves. Sometimes it's easy to get upset and be frustrated and say, oh, I just can't do this. I can't believe I'm just awful at this. And those are not kind words to ourselves. So we have to remember to be kind to ourselves too and say, I can do this. And so when you're having a moment like that, we can use this method and take a moment, close our eyes, and imagine what that person who loves us would say to us, and use those similar words with ourselves. All right. Now next, we're going to read a book. This book is called Born with a Bang. Book 1. The Universe Tells Our Cosmic Story. Once you were a tiny speck, buried in the dark inside your mother. But you couldn't stay small. You grew and grew until one day you were ready to leave the darkness. On that very special day, your birthday, you were born into the light. I too had a special day when I was born. But there was no light for me to be born into. I am the universe. You were inside me from the very beginning, but not in your human form. like you, I started as a tiny speck. About 13 billion years ago, or so, I was smaller than a piece of dust under your bed. It's hard to imagine that I started out so small, but I did. And if you asked me where I came from, I would tell you that I don't know. It's the greatest of all mysteries. But there I was, like you, I couldn't stay small. I was bursting with wild and dazzling dreams of galaxies, stars, and planets in radiant colors. Bright yellow, molten red, piercing blue. In other dreams, I saw creatures, fish cruising deep blue seas, insects alighting on flowers, reptiles basking on hot rocks in the sun, birds swooping down on their prey, and I saw you too, gazing at a star. Could such an amazing thing really happen, I wondered? Oh, how I wanted my dreams to happen, but how could they? How could you happen? Then I suddenly realized I could be the things in my dreams. I could explode in a giant star, grow green in a thin blade of grass, roar as a lion and purr as a kitten, feel feelings of love, sadness, and wonder. And yes, it began to dawn on me, everything you would have to come out of me. There was no other way, and everything would be me. But I wondered, would I become worms with wings, foxes with fins, tulips with toes, or boulders with brains? I was puzzled. What forms would I like best? I didn't know. What if I had tried and ended up making a big mess? Even though I was just a tiny speck, I wanted to try. I decided to take the chance and do it. I summoned all my courage and took my first steps. I burst into a grapefruit-sized fireball of a universe packed with surging energy. It took only an instant. Space and time had just begun. I was so bright back then. I would have blinded you if you had eyes, but of course you didn't yet. I was so dense I would have crushed your bones if you had bones back then, but of course you didn't yet. I was so hot I would have vaporized your muscles if you had muscles back then, but of course you didn't yet. I would have to experiment before I could come up with my eyes, bones, and muscles that actually worked. But I'm getting way ahead of myself. Back then, you and everyone and everything else were still just energy packed inside me. And I was a flaming universe, but you probably don't remember that. Or do you? I couldn't hold myself at grapefruit size anymore. I was really ready to go for it. In a flash, space exploded inside me with unimaginable power. Like a gargantuan balloon, I blew up to the size of a galaxy, and it all happened faster than you can snap your fingers. After I blew up, I kept growing, but more slowly. I had to find the right speed for a universe. I could have died if everything had not been just right. If I had grown just a bit more slowly, my own gravity would have overpowered me and squashed me into nothingness. If I had grown just a bit faster, I would have blown apart and disappeared into nothingness. That would have been the end of our story. No galaxies, no turtles, and no you. But everything was just right. Yes, I was hardly a tiny young universe. If I had a human mother, she would have scolded me for all my clutter and confusion. And I'm not just talking about dirty socks on the cosmic floor. I was utter bedlam When I was a fraction of a second old, I was already a mess. Hotter than 1 trillion degrees, I was blazing with the heat of billions of suns. Suddenly, gigantic blowing bolts of energy flashed everywhere and shrank into teensy things. Oh no, what had I done? Actually, I had done something incredible. Yes, I had turned energy into the very first things, tiny particles. Particles that are invisible bits of stuff that everything is made up of. Maybe my dreams could come true. Maybe I could turn myself into stars and grass and lions and kittens and tulips and boulders. Maybe I could be you too. But oh blast, a frustrating thing kept happening. Every time I turned energy into a particle, its exact opposite, an antiparticle, would appear. These pairs weren't very friendly. In fact, they were enemies that destroyed each other over every time they met. I had barely begun my adventure and already was out of control. Two sides were at war, yet both were a part of me. In the beginning, they were equally matched and kept zapping each other, so I made more, billions more, and then amazingly, for every billion particles that were zapped by antiparticles, I was able to make one extra particle. The particles were winning, so I made more and more and more. Then I stopped. I had enough basic bits of stuff to build myself into the universe you know today. And guess what? The number of these particles has stayed the same ever since. Everything, including your body, is made out of those same particles that I made long, long ago. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. Back then, when I had just finished making particles, I looked like a huge, glowing fog. Zapped particles and antiparticles hadn't disappeared. They had turned into light. That's when I knew that even though things might seem to die, they never really end. They just change form. After all, everything is a part of me and always will be. I am particles and I am light. It's hard to believe, but I was still less than 1 second old. So much was happening at breakneck speed. Young particles raced around and around inside me, dizzily tumbling and crashing into one another like kids playing on a couch. By the time I was about 300,000 years old, I was pretty cool. Only about 3,000 degrees. Suddenly, another amazing thing happened. It might have been accidental, but I don't think so. I was just the right temperature for bunches of particles to join together, and when they joined together, they morphed into very different things. They were small, but very important. They were kind of like Lego pieces, building blocks that I could use later for making bigger things. I made my very first atom. They were atoms of hydrogen. I was proud of creating hydrogen atoms. You bet I was. I was just a kid universe, and already I had hit my first home run. You would have cheered me on if you had a voice back then, but of course you didn't yet. Hydrogen atoms are still really important to me. Every gulp of water that slides down your throat is made of hydrogen that was created by me billions of years ago. Of course, back then there was no water yet. The hydrogen fog began to ripple and clump together into wavy strings. Gravity pulled these strings together into globs. As globs got bigger, the gravity got stronger, which made the globs get even bigger. The bigger they got, the hotter they got. Then, wow, one of my dreams began to come true. These enormous hydrogen globs started igniting into mother stars. One here, one there. Soon there were huge mother stars everywhere. Gigantic groups of mother stars spiraled into space. I was shaping myself into galaxies. There were billions of galaxies, each with billions of stars, spinning and sparkling like jewels in the black night. In the center of your Milky Way, my gravity became so powerful that it turned into a black hole. Oh, oh! Everything near the black hole, stars, dust, clouds, and even light got trapped and sucked in. It all swirled down into the black hole's mysterious dark depths, just as water swirls and disappears down a bathtub drain. Mysterious black holes appeared at the center of many galaxies. Where did all that stuff go? Is it stuck inside? Did I do something wrong? Or are the black holes really secret passageways into other universes? All that stuff has to be somewhere because nothing ever really disappears. After a while, the black holes sucked up all the nearby stars and their gravity could reach. Then they settled down and became quiet. Your Milky Way and billions of other galaxies too were growing up. Mind you, my dear Earthling, your Milky Way is one tiny neighborhood in my vast expanse. Even though your galaxy is very special, I care equally for all my galaxies. Every one of them is a part of me. In fact, they are all are me. Luckily, lots and lots of young stars hadn't been sucked into black holes. In one of the Milky Way's spiraling arms, one mother star, very important to you, grew into shimmering, majestic giant. She lived long before your sun was born and was much, much bigger than your sun would be inside her enormous blazing belly. She did something incredible. Your mother star mixed together bunches of hydrogen and baked them at 3 million degrees into lots of different new elements of building blocks. One of these new elements was carbon. One day, chains of carbon called DNA would carry instructions from one generation to the next. For how each living thing should grow. Another new element was oxygen. One day, oxygen would combine with hydrogen to make one of the most magnificent things, water. And where would you be without oxygen to breathe and water to drink? Yet another was calcium. Calcium can be really hard stuff. How useful for making bones. Carbon, oxygen, and calcium can't be made on Earth because it's much too cool. Every atom of these elements was fused inside a colossal mother star. Was I proud of her new elements? You bet I was. Before your own star could be born, the one you call the sun, your mother star had to die. Your mother star ripped herself apart in a massive explosion, a supernova. Tiny specks of carbon, oxygen, and calcium, and all the other new building blocks she made blasted into space and cooled into stardust. Her stardust was the same stardust that would one day come together to create you. You are made of stardust. Every bit of it exploded from your ancient mother star, who no longer lives. I was about 7 billion years old when she died. Inside the cloud of stardust, a little gravity tugged from each speck, making them gently stick together in little clumps. The little clumps clumped together into bigger clumps. The bigger clumps crashed into each other and stayed together. They swirled into a disc shape, faster and faster, hotter and denser, tighter and brighter, until finally, whoosh! Your sun flared into life. Born, too, from clumps of stardust were 9 young planetary pups. The planets tagged along after father-son, but they were smaller and had no light of their own. Plants depend on the sun's generosity, just as human children depend on their parents for food and shelter. Oh, how I delight as your sun sent light and warmth to its planets. By now you know everything within me is giving and receiving. And when things team up with each other, they morph into even more spectacular forms, just as particles create hydrogen by sticking together. Hydrogen clouds compress themselves into stars, and stars gather in gleaming galaxies. To use human language, you might say that I, the universe, am loving myself through everything that is playing and working together, even the tiny particles teaming up to form you. There I go again, talking about earthlings long before they existed. Do you want to know what has always propelled my adventure forward? It's giving and receiving, and it's playing and working together. The third pup inside the young planetary pack, your Earth, was a burning red ball of molten stardust. I was about 8.5 billion years old when your Earth was born. She was a high-energy young pup, cruising around your sun, erupting volcanoes, spewing steam and other gases. The steam turned into rain, and the rain formed vast oceans. Other gases rose up and became the air. Lightning storms zapped her seas. Meteors and comets crashed into her for millions of years. Slowly, slowly, she cooled down and formed a firm, crusty surface. A hungry young planet, she drank light and warmth from her golden sun, her source of life in the midst of cold, dark space. Sun and earth began their rhythmic dance of day and night, spring, summer, fall, and winter. The ocean bubbled and boiled. Hot red rocks oozed up through rips of the ocean floor. What would I, the universe, turn myself into next? This was exciting. I remembered my wild and dazzling dreams of galaxies and stars and planets. Now I had them, or maybe I should say, now I was them. But wait, I remember another dream too. I remembered creatures slicing through water, creeping on plants, crawling on rocks, soaring on winds, and gazing at stars. You were there too. Oh, how I longed to become creatures, including you. Would this be a good place for creatures to begin to twitch and multiply? Did I have enough building blocks to turn myself into creatures? Let's see. I had made hydrogen a long, long time ago. And inside Mother Stars, I had made carbon, oxygen, calcium, and a whole bunch of other building blocks. And then I had brought hydrogen and oxygen together to form water. Maybe I was ready. Of course, dear Earthling, our story doesn't end here. So much still has to happen before I could turn myself into you. In my next story, your planet Earth comes alive, but that will have to wait for another day. Until we talk again, I send you my very best from the cosmos. Remember, I am always with you, my sweet Earthling. I will tell you a secret. I'm even closer to you than that. It's true, I am you. Love, the universe. All right, so we just read Born with a Bang. And did you notice how the universe kept telling us that we were a part of the universe? Do you remember what it said we came from? That's right, stardust. And so if you paid attention, it talks about how we're all connected and we're all a part of the universe. And sometimes at Unity we say the universe or God, and we kind of use those interchangeably because we know that the universe was created and we consider that a part of God, and everything's a part of God, and so thus the universe is a part of us and we are a part of it. Everything is connected. Alright, so for our experiment this time we're going to I just took carrot tops and I sliced the top off of the carrot and I cut 1 inch off of the top. So I've had these growing for a couple of days just to make sure that they would grow. And so I have 2 carrot tops. And then I didn't put much water because you don't want it to go past the stem right here. You can also use the lid from a jar and just put it on there with some water. You can add some rocks to the bottom if you want to help it get some roots. And so we're going to do an experiment with 2 plants, and they have to be in separate containers. You can either use the carrot tops like I'm using. It's a really easy, cheap way. Or you can use 2 actual plants. Now you want them to be exactly the same, and you want to add just water to both of them, and make sure you keep refilling the water, and we're going to put them in a sunny window. And to one of them, every day, you are going to, when you refill it with water, you're going to say very mean things to it. So I'm going to say, "Oh, you are so ugly. I can't believe you are just the most awful little plant. Ugh, you disgust me. I hate you." And to our other plant, we're going to say positive, kind words. So we're going to say, "I love you. You are so beautiful. I just can't believe how amazing you are growing so perfectly. You are just the most perfect plant." And so we're going to make sure that we do our negative words. So you want to write minus sign or plus sign, however you want to do it, so that you know which one is negative and which one is positive. And every day, whenever you think about it, but at least once a day, maybe you do it 5 times a day, you just tell that one plant how awful it is, and you tell the other plant how wonderful they are. And when you do it, I want you to think about how you feel inside as you're saying those things. And then next week, we're going to look at how our plant is doing, but we're going to try to keep this experiment going for several weeks. So this is going to go on a sunny windowsill. And for our second activity, you can either use a piece of white paper like I'm using, or you can use a piece of a cardboard box. The inside of a cereal box works well for your paper. And what we're going to do is we're going to paint one picture, and as we're painting this one, we're going to think of all the wonderful things that we can say to ourselves. Like, we're going to think of how we love ourselves, and how we're amazing beings, and just paint thinking about all of those wonderful things. Now, for the second part of this, we're going to think about all of those negative things and think about how you feel when you're really upset, and think about when you just feel like you can't do anything right, and maybe how you feel when someone has just said that they don't like you and they don't want to be your friend. And just let it all out. You don't have to paint a picture, just how you're feeling when you're upset. All right? And then you can take a look at the differences in how your pictures look when you're upset versus when maybe you're happy and feeling good things. So I am so happy that we had this chance together. Please join me in the experiment with the plants or the carrot tops. It should be really interesting to see how our words affect the plant. And so I am just so glad that you guys have all joined me. and we are going to say our ending prayer together. But before we do, let's just say I am so grateful to have you here, and I hope to see you next week. If you enjoyed this video, please let us know by either giving it a thumbs up or by putting in the comments just something so that we know you got to watch it and you loved it. All right, so the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and we are grateful. Amen.